Hello, are you guys ready for tip number 8? It's Marnie Ginsberg here with Reading Simplified, and we are in week 3 of our Spring Forward 25-day challenge. We're trying to end the year powerfully and confidently and win some prizes along the way and see those kids who may be trailing a bit behind, see them rocket forward. So I'm here today, as I mentioned at the beginning, with tip number 8, okay? It's been a little quiet this week. I've had other things going on with family and big projects, so it's been a while, but I bet you guys are rocking through this Spring Forward plan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check the link above for the Spring Forward Challenge. We are now in week 3, and you guys are probably now getting into a balanced guided reading structure where you start with a rereading for fluency from the text from the day before. Then you're moving into word work with activities like switch it and read it. And then you are adding in a new text every day using guided reading. And I've been getting some questions about how to work with small groups, how to juggle small groups, and that's understandable because first of all, it's a challenge, and then secondly, when you guys see me in these videos, I'm usually just working with one student, and so that one student is a great venue for showing how an activity works, but it's not very realistic for the classroom teacher. So I got a chance to work with some first grade students this week, and I thought it would be neat to share some of the things that I learned along the way. Okay, so the first one, I was working with first graders that I hadn't met before, and I worked with them 2 days in a row. So these activities were fairly new to them, and they were certainly, the students were new to me, and I was new to them. So when we did switch it, I didn't know whether they could do CVCC, or they could do CVC, or they could do CCVCC words, the hardest. So I started with CVCC words. And because it was the end of first grade, I knew they were behind, but I thought maybe they could handle it. Okay, so we're doing Switch It, and if you don't know what Switch It is, go to readingsimplified.com/start-here, and you'll find that. readingsimplified.com/start-here. So what happened? Guess what happens when some kids are starting to move the words around? They're saying it's changing slip to slid. What happens when kids are doing that? Does anybody have a guess? When one kid can do it and another can't, what happens to those eyes? They are starting to scan their neighbors' boards, right? And I'm sure you have seen that, and that defeats the purpose. You don't know then what student is able to do what. So I'm going to forward this little Facebook Live into our group, the Level Up Your Reader's Achievement. And then we will keep going with this tip on how to juggle a small group. Okay, so the eyes are wandering, and that means that I, as a teacher, have kind of had the rug pulled out from under me because I don't know who's actually able to do it. So one of the kids came up with a natural solution. They just covered their board. I said, okay, so switch it and then cover your board with their arms. So we didn't have any, big dividers. That wasn't something that I had accessible, but it was pretty easy for them to quickly cover their boards with their hands, and that way I could know who was able to do it and who wasn't. So I would have them lift up one by one or kind of peek. And then if there was an error, then I was able to give the feedback that's really helpful for switches. So if the child had this, and maybe it was the word slip, and they were supposed to have slap, well, I would go, well, you have slip, and you need slap. So I was able to give that one-on-one feedback for the one child that still needed the help, and then they could make the switch. And then everyone else, I could see that they had gotten it. And then I had everybody check the sounds, and I kind of did a little octopus dance by pointing to 2 boards at the same time, and so that I would trigger that we're going to say each sound separately. And so I also was kind of giving them a kinesthetic cue that they needed to be on their eyes on the board. So I would be pointing to 2 boards simultaneously, and let's check the sounds in and say this was slip. Let's check the sounds. S, o, e, p, slip. So that was a way for me to have the group kind of do all the same word lists. In other words, I kind of should have started with that. For Switch It, what I found worked for this group, and that's pretty much how it is with all groups, right? You have to make an adjustment and figure out what works for which group. But for this group of first graders, I gave them all the same word list, so that was a little easier for me, and yet they covered the boards so I could figure out who actually needed the one-on-one help and who didn't. So that's tip. First, try that if you haven't tried that for Switch It so that you can give the same word list. Now what happens, of course, is everyone similarly able to succeed with this? Of course, no. So that kind of moves me into this tip. If I had the same student over and over again, maybe having trouble with the two consonants at the beginning of the word, which are harder than, say, the two consonants at the end of the word. If that student is having trouble doing that and they keep needing my feedback, well, it can make them feel insecure, and they may notice, well, I get more of the teacher's help than everybody else, and so you don't want any kind of insecurity. So what I would like to do with the child that was having more trouble with Switch It is I would like to pull that child aside for just 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes for 2 or 3 days and get them up to speed with the rest of the group. And it doesn't take long with these activities, whether it's Switch It or Read It, which we'll get to in a minute. By the way, if you're just tuning in, please let me know if you have been using the Spring Forward Challenge, if you have any more days of school left, and how the Spring Forward Challenge is going. So any of those kinds of questions, where are you in the school year? I know some people are already out, and have you been doing the Spring Forward Challenge? And how's it going? And please, if you have a question, I'd love to hear them. So we're talking about how to juggle a small group. Okay, LaRonda said, oh, thank you for the lessons. It's been my pleasure. It's my privilege to share them. I hope they're useful. So the second tip about how to juggle a group was to do something actually different than what I did with Switch It. Switch It, I gave everyone the same word list, and then I asked them cover. But with Read It, again, these kids were new to me, and I really wanted to be sure that they were going to develop this highly important decoding skill that I call blend as you read. So what can happen with Read It, especially in first grade or higher, is kids may be able to read this word but still not using a blend as you read approach. And you think, well, then they're fine. If they can read the word, they don't have this approach. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that this forms the backbone or the foundation for harder and harder and harder words. Whether we get to 5-sound words like C, 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 V, C, C words, or 6-sound words, or we get into multi-syllable words. If you don't really know how to put sounds together as you go, or to blend as you read, then you may be fine at the 3-sound word level, the CVC. You may be fine at the 4-sound word level, the CVCC or the CCVC level. But as you get higher and higher into harder and harder words, it will probably break down for you, particularly if you have any tendency towards being a struggling reader or have less access to reading. Or anything that would make reading harder. You really want to make sure this skill is strong. So I'll just do a quick review of Blend as you read. LaRonda is going to begin on Monday. Oh, she is in Turks and Caicos, right? That's very exciting. Okay, so you still have a good chunk of time. Excellent, LaRonda. Okay, so Blend as you read. If you haven't heard that tip from Read It, it's just like this. You don't want the child to say, oh, ah, G. You do not want the sound by sound approach. You want them to put the sounds together as you go, or blend them as they go. So I usually cover up the end and say, let me hear those first 2 sounds. Oh, okay, say, you want the kid to be doing this. Full, what's next? And hold that vowel. Flag. What's the word? Flag. So that's all the Blend as you read strategy is. It's super simple, but sometimes it's kind of hard to teach, especially if you've been teaching a what word? Flag approach. Okay, so because Blend as you read is so important, I didn't want them to, I wanted to know how they were processing these words. So what I did was, in contrast to Switch It, I actually gave them all different words. So I wrote some words on cards. I picked CVCC words and CCVC words mostly, and maybe a CVCC word. And then I had them draw, so that hopefully was a little more fun than, you know, just assigning them a card. And we took turns. So this was a little more of a slower part of the lesson because some kids had to watch for sure. But again, this wouldn't be something you necessarily do forever. After you've established this skill, then you can kind of pick up the pace. So I let the child draw a word, and then I helped them do the blend as you read approach. Okay? And then, hi Mary, glad to see you here. I just, then everyone could participate by writing the word as they said the word. So that's the other half of the Read It activity, which is on our Spring Forward Challenge for pretty much every day. This activity right here. So after they read the word, then they write the word. So this is all that it looks like. It's pretty simple. Okay, say the sounds as you do it. O, A, G. So one kid read, and then everybody wrote. And then the other thing I did was I pulled the words away. I didn't let them see them because I was pointing out to them, hey, you actually hear these sounds. Even though you think you might not know how to spell flag, what is the first sound you hear? And then what's the next sound? So they could do it. And then finally, we could all do the erase game together. Okay, this is how the erase game goes, just like it sounds. You say the sounds as you do it. O, A, G. All right. And then we got to guided reading, and I had them take turns. Again, they were new to me, and I wasn't really sure what they were able to do. It was another great assessment moment for me. So I had them take turns with one sentence at a time, and we were reading a simple passage like A Snow Day for Mom or Joe and Joan, for those of you who have already gotten the free packet of O sound material that is with the week 4. And if you haven't gotten there, that's coming up soon. Week 4, we have the introducing of the Sort It activity, and that activity, if you look on the back, has a link to a free PDF of a whole bunch of O sound activities, and those are some of the stories that are in there. Okay, so they took turns that way, and then one would read a line, and then I think we would all then chorally read the line afterwards. It was a short story, maybe like 10 lines, so it wasn't that inconvenient to do that. So that was just a couple of ways in which I juggled, you know, having 4 kids of varying levels and varying attention spans that I had to work with. I think what I would do with that group the next time I met with them is pull 2 boys aside and work with them one-on-one for about 5 minutes, because interestingly, what kind of seemed to be creating, what kind of dynamic was being created there with those boys was that they did not want to get feedback from me, because then I think in their minds that's a sign that they, you know, are unsuccessful. Even though everyone got individualized feedback and everyone had some issues that they needed to get better at, they put, I sensed that they kind of felt there was a stigma there. So one of them started to take the dumb approach, like, oh, I don't know, and they made ridiculous answers, and they were smirking the whole time, and they were getting other kids to laugh. Have you had that happen before? And then the other one just kind of pulled back and got a little more quiet. And so I was feeling like that was not a good dynamic, and so next time what I would like to do is pull them aside and work with them individually, like I said, for about 5 to 7 minutes. It won't take long until I get them up to the level of being able to pretty much manipulate words in sounds and words for Switch It, and being able to be sure that they're using the blend as you read strategy. Those are 2 like foundational decoding skills that you need to be looking out for each of your kids, whether they're a beginner or a struggler, to really lay the strong foundation of guided reading or of reading comprehension that you want for them. So if I was to work with them again, and I hope I might, I'm gonna pull them aside and work with them just one-on-one and build their skills and hopefully build their confidence, so that hopefully our group dynamic is a little bit more functional. Okay, Rashika says she did flag a friend. Oh, sorry there. Yeah, we got, don't miss the flag, the O in flag. Flag. Okay, so what are you guys doing? So we already had Rhonda share how she's about to get started with this Spring Forward Challenge. Has anyone else gotten a chance to do it? And another thing that we could talk about is what are some things that you have done to juggle small groups, because there's probably an infinite number of things that one could do. These are just some things that I did in reaction to the 4 particular kids I had this past week. And Rashika says, laughing out loud. Yes. Okay, what about the children, LaRonda says, that are able to say the sounds and blends but don't say the word? Okay, so you mean, let's see, you mean, let me see if I'm getting this right. So maybe they can say flag, and then they kind of just don't say it, or are you talking more about switch it? LaRonda, can you tell me if you're talking about switch it or read it? Because it's kind of tricky. If you mean they're able to do it in isolation, but they can't say the word, probably you need to put more coaching into the blend as you read approach, if I'm understanding you correctly. So they would need coaching on how to put those 2 sounds together, and you would ask them, put those 2 sounds together. Yes, don't say the word. Okay, so let's see if this will work for you, LaRonda. So they go and then they can't maybe put it together, or you're saying they can blend it. So then let's say full, and they do flat, and then they get to the end and they may be still afraid or are timid. You can model it and then say, now you copy me, and do that 2 or 3 times, and then the 4th time say, okay, this time I'm not going to do it back because I know you can do it. You've shown me. The other thing you can do when kids have trouble with the blend as you read approach is to give, say, 3 or 4 pictures ahead of time before they read it. And let's see. That's my attempt at a flag. Not a drawer. Okay, let's see. So I would probably do 3 words that start with the sound, and then tell them we've got flag, and this is fun. They're having a great time. They're so excited. What's another sound word? I'm drawing a blank, so I'm on TV. Okay, I'll get back to your point, LaRonda. Thank you for explaining it a little bit more. For flag, fun, flip, okay? So that's flip, like the child's flipping over, okay? So you'd start the lesson and say, I'm going to have you read this word. First, they would draw a card and say they got this card and say, oh, we're going to read this word, but it's going to be either flip, like the child's flipping in a circle, or the child's having fun, or it's flag. So let's put the sounds together as we go, and you see which one of these you are reading, okay? Oh, and hold that sound, flag. After all of that, with these preemptive cues, the child should be able to get it. Now, LaRonda said this is kind of what you had the problem was, okay, they're putting FL together as a unit, but then they're not adding the vowel. Okay, that's very classic, and so you just need to cover the G and get them to put those 3 sounds together. So if they get to the full, and then you say, oh, don't forget to add this one. Let's go to the full, and you extend the O because it's easier to drag out. Add the ah. You've got full, and then you try to help them to draw out the ah. If they can't do it, then you say, well, I see here, flat, and I'm going to kind of sing that sound right here. Flat, copy me, flat. And when you reveal the G, they'll get flag, because really adding the vowel is the hard part. The hardest part is the vowel, and the second hardest part of the blend. But by the time you get to the last sound, unless they are English language learners and they don't know the word, it will be pretty easy for them. I hope that helps you guys. Okay. Great, Mary. Thanks for tuning in while you could. And LaRonda says, yeah, the pictures can be helpful. Don't use it as a crutch for too long, because they don't need it for very long. They should be able to pick this skill up in a matter of days, maybe 2 weeks at the most. Hi, Zyboon, good to see you here. Okay, great, LaRonda. Are there any other questions about anything that we're working on in the Spring Forward Challenge? I've given you my tips about switch it and read it, and pulling kids aside for one-on-one time. and I'd love to hear how it's going for you. Are your kids doing these activities? What snags are you hitting? And how many days left do you have? And just to recap, I'll just, while we wait to see if there's any questions or comments or successes, I love to hear the successes. For Switch It, I gave everyone the same word list and then had them cover their board if they finished the word, so then I could be sure that everyone's work was their own, and then I could give the one-on-one individual feedback where I needed to give it, okay? And then for Read It, I did not give everyone the same words. They took turns drawing cards, and the cards would be words with short vowels and you know, C, V, C words, and then they took turns reading it, and I could support the blend as you read approach, but then everyone wrote it and said the sounds. Oh, they do that again. Oh, ah, go. Everyone did that, and then everyone did their race game too. Oh, ah, go. So what I'm doing is what the kids were doing. And then finally, I realized that some kids were kind of getting a motivational problem going. I didn't like that dynamic, so I'm going to pull 2 kids aside particularly that I want to be sure have gotten up to the level of the whole group with the strength of the blend as you read strategy and the ability to do the manipulating of the phonemes and words. All right, so I don't see any questions. I think I will then sign out soon. If you haven't gotten this free Spring Forward 25-day challenge, which includes lesson plans, go to the post above and snag this. Also check out in the post what the prizes are, because everyone who participates gets a prize. You will all get a free Sorted packet, and Sorted is an activity that quickly teaches advanced phonics. In this case, it's going to be targeting the E sound and its main spellings, like the E in he, the E in many, the E in each, and the E in sweet. So that's a freebie that everyone gets by just participating, and you'll find out how to participate on the post above. And the person that writes the strongest success story for participating in the 25-day Spring Forward Challenge will get 3 full months of membership to the Reading Simplified Academy, which is our flagship program to teach how to do these strategies through a video course, and getting access to hundreds of differentiated kids materials, and also a discussion board where I'm online every weekday giving feedback to you guys. So that is a great big prize, and there's also a great second place prize. And the other nice thing about this Spring Forward Challenge, if you haven't snagged it, is the links here into this PDF to other freebies, and to basically this gives you the gist of the whole Reading Simplified framework. I really only use about 3 main core activities to each lesson with a kid, whether I'm working with a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old. The same core activities are here that I use with a child who's beginning or a child who's struggling. The only difference really is not in the structure or the core activities, 2 of which I've talked about today. The only difference is the words and the text. So LaRonda is glad to hear about the prizes. Oh, okay, I'll probably go live again. She's asking when is that going to happen? Probably on Saturday, but I don't unfortunately have a set schedule yet. I'm looking forward to having that one day, but with family life, it's hard to do that, to be honest. So I think I'm going to sign out. And if you have benefited from this and you think you have a peer that would benefit from this, or a colleague, please tag them in the comments. Just put their name in the comments and they'll get tagged and maybe have access to all of these free resources and the opportunity for the prizes too. And the other thing you can do is to go to the Facebook page that you're on probably right now, the Reading Simplified Facebook page, and turn on your notifications so that when I do go live, you have the chance to tune in immediately and not miss it. So thanks for being here, and I look forward to sharing more tips about the Spring Forward Challenge in the coming days and weeks. Thank you, LaRonda. It's great. I'm glad that you can spread the word.